Cannabis Common Sense, the show that tells the truth about marijuana and the politics behind its prohibition.
Hello and welcome to another exciting edition of Cannabis Common Sense. Standing by next to me is Mr. Eric Llewellyn. Hey Eric. Pretty well. Over in the wings, Mr. John Cornett is back with a couple more songs. Welcome back, John. There he is. We have our hemp news segment. We've got videos, but stay tuned. We'll be back right after this.
I feel the force.
Our first story tonight is from Forbes magazine, the Business Journal. A bipartisan group of senators is stepping up to the push to let marijuana businesses store their profit in banks, with a possible vote coming as soon as this next week. Under the current federal prohibition of cannabis, many banks refuse to do businesses with marijuana growers, processors, and sellers that operate legally in accordance with a growing number of state laws. As a result, many cultivators and dispensaries operate on a cash-only basis, which makes them targets for robberies. That could soon change under a proposal that 10 U.S. senators filed on Wednesday. The measure, led by Oregon's own Jeff Merkley and Ron Wyden, and Lisa Murkowski, a Republican from Alaska, would prevent federal officials from punishing a financial service provider, quote, solely because the depository institution provides or has provided financial services to a cannabis-related legitimate business, end quote. It's an amendment to a larger bill being considered by the Senate floor this week that would remove some restrictions that were enacted on financial institutions as part of the 2010 Dodd-Frank Act. Despite a U.S. Department of Justice move in January to undo protections for state marijuana laws, a top Trump official has repeatedly indicated that he wants to solve cannabis businesses' banking access problems. Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin, not a favorite in my book, in an appearance before a House committee last month testified that the issue is at the top of his list of the Treasury Department's concerns. During a separate House hearing last month, Mnuchin indicated he wants cannabis businesses to be able to store their profits in banks. He said, quote, I assure you we don't want bags of cash. We do want to find a solution to make sure that businesses that have large access to cash have a way to get them into a depository institution for it to be safe, end quote, Mnuchin said. Prior to being confirmed by the Senate last year, Mnuchin said in response to written questions from a senator that marijuana businesses' banking and tax issues are, quote, very important, end quote. In 2014, under the Obama administration, the Treasury Department's Financial Crimes Enforcement Network published a memo outlining how banks can open accounts for cannabis businesses without triggering federal enforcement actions. But because the document did not change overarching federal laws, many banks remain reluctant to work with marijuana providers. Along with Merkley and Murkowski, the other co-sponsors of the new cannabis banking amendments are Patty Murray of Washington, our own Ron Wyden here in Oregon, Rand Paul of Kentucky, Michael Bennett of Colorado, Edward Markey of Massachusetts, Elizabeth Warren, also of Massachusetts, Bernie Sanders from Vermont, and last but not least, Kamala Harris, a new senator right out of California. Similar standalone legislation has 15 Senate sponsors, while a House companion version has 89 lawmakers signed on. It's currently unknown if the measure will receive a floor vote as part of the consideration of the broader banking reform bill. Documents released this past week, late last year actually, showed that a number of banks willing to work with marijuana industry has steadily grown over time, but that data was compiled prior to the revocation of a Justice Department guidance on state marijuana laws by our esteemed U.S. Attorney General Jefferson Beauregard Sessions. I have sometimes misstated his name as Jeffrey, and he is actually Jefferson, like Jefferson Davis, Jefferson Beauregard Sessions. Thanks to that viewer who reminded me of that. Our next story tonight's out of Washington, D.C. Health and Human Services Secretary Alex Azar is the former president of the pharmaceutical company Eli Lilly. Speaking on the U.S. opioid crisis last week in Ohio, Health and Human Services Secretary Alex Azar shot down medical marijuana as a possible alternative pain management tool, saying, quote, "There's really no such thing as medical marijuana," end quote. From the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, they said, quote, "The statement came during a press conference on opioids at an inpatient facility that treats newborns suffering from prenatal exposure to opioids." He went on to say, quote, "There is no FDA-approved use of marijuana, a botanical plant. I just want to be very clear about that," end quote. Azar was responding to a question about what role he sees medical marijuana playing as an alternative to opioids for pain relief. He went on, "In its focus on developing non-addictive pain management drug options, the federal government does not consider medical marijuana an approved treatment," Azari said. He said, quote, "We're devoting hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars to research at our National Institutes of Health as part of the historic $13 billion opioid and serious mental illness program that the President and Congress are funding," end quote. He went on, quote, "Over $750 million just in 2019 alone is going to be dedicated toward the National Institutes of Health working in public-private partnership to try and develop the next generation of pain therapies that are not opioids," end quote. Unfortunately, Azar, and with his background in Eli Lilly, we know who lines his pockets, and the Trump administration in general might be jumping the gun in writing off medical marijuana as a possible alternative to opioids. Those scientists caution more studies necessary, though it's been studied very intensely. Preliminary research suggests that the introduction of medical marijuana might be driving down opioid use and potentially overdoses as well. Several studies have shown that medical marijuana has been beneficial to opioid users. A study published last year by researchers at the University of Michigan found chronic pain sufferers who used cannabis saw a 64% drop in opioid use. Sounds pretty useful to me. Our next story is from St. Paul, Minnesota. Patients with intractable pain reduce their use of prescription opioids following cannabis therapy, according to a new study by the Minnesota Department of Health investigators. And they assessed the prescription drug use patterns of 2,245 intractable pain patients participating in Minnesota's medical cannabis access program. Among those patients known to be taking opiates for pain upon enrollment in the program, 63% were able to reduce or eliminate their opioid use after 6 months. The report's findings are similar to those of enrollees in other statewide cannabis access programs. For example, Michigan chronic pain patients experienced a 64% decrease in opioid use, decreased number and side effects of medications, and an improved quality of life, end quote, following admission into the program. A 2017 assessment of medical cannabis patients in Illinois revealed that participants in the state-run program frequently reported using marijuana as an alternative to other medications, most commonly opioids, but also anticonvulsants, anti-inflammatories, and over-the-counter analgesics. In New Mexico, they compared non-users, medical cannabis enrollees, and found that cannabis enrollees were more likely either to reduce daily opioid prescription dosages between the beginning and end of the sample period, 83.8% versus 44.8%, or cease filling opioid prescriptions altogether at about 40.5% versus 3.4%, end quote. This report, Intractable Pain Patients in Minnesota's Medical Cannabis Program, Experience of Enrollees During the First 5 Months, is online. Out of Netanya, Israel, cannabis therapy mitigates symptoms of the chronic pain condition fibromyalgia and is associated with a reduction in the use of other prescription drugs, according to the Journal of Clinical Rheumatology. An estimated 3 to 6 million Americans are afflicted by fibromyalgia, which is often poorly controlled by standard pain medications. Israeli investigators assessed the safety and efficacy of inhaled cannabis in a cohort of 26 patients with fibromyalgia. They reported that medical cannabis treatment was associated with a significant favorable outcome in every item evaluated, such as reductions in pain and increases in energy. Most patients also reduced their use of conventional prescription drugs, such as opiates and benzodiazepines, during the trial period. Nearly half of the participants, or 46%, reduced their prescription drug intake by more than 50% during the study. Several patients were also able to return to work following the initiation of cannabis therapy. The researchers concluded, quote, medical cannabis treatment had a significant favorable effect on patients with fibromyalgia, with few adverse effects, end quote. Prior trials evaluating the use of either whole plant cannabis or cannabinoids have similarly shown efficacy in patients with the disease. A summary of these prior studies is available online. This study, Medical Cannabis for the Treatment of Fibromyalgia, appears in the Journal of Clinical Rheumatology. Our next story is from Columbia, Missouri. Proponents of a Missouri voter initiative effort to legalize and regulate the therapeutic use and distribution of cannabis for medical purposes statewide in Missouri have surpassed 200,000 signatures. The advocates must collect a total of 160,000 qualified signatures in 6 of Missouri's 8 congressional districts by May 6th in order to qualify the measure for the November electoral ballot. The initiative permits patients at the discretion of a physician to cultivate limited quantities of marijuana or to obtain cannabis and cannabis-infused products from licensed facilities. The group behind the effort, New Approach Missouri, includes members of both National Normal as well as its state and local affiliates. Missouri is one of several states where voters this year are anticipated to decide on cannabis-related ballot measures. In November, members of the Michigan Normal and other coalition members turned in 360,000 signatures in an effort to qualify the Michigan Regulation and Taxation of Marijuana Act for the November ballot. This would legalize marijuana for all adults in Michigan. Just over 252,000 valid signatures are needed. 360,000 were turned in. Also in November, grassroots activists in South Dakota turned in over 15,000 signatures in an effort to place the South Dakota Medical Marijuana Initiative on the ballot. Over 13,800 valid signatures are necessary. In Utah, advocates are well on their way to gathering the necessary quantity of signatures necessary to place the Utah Medical Cannabis Act on the November 2018 ballot. In Oklahoma, voters will decide on June 26 whether or not to approve State Question 788, a broad-based initiative that permits physicians to recommend medical cannabis to patients at their sole discretion. Our next story is from Maine. Lawmakers in Maine's legislature are moving forward with a proposal to significantly amend various provisions of the state's 2016 voter-approved cannabis law, the Marijuana Legalization Act. Members of the Marijuana Legalization Implementation Committee have voted 16-1 in favor of overhauling the law, which still has yet to be fully implemented. Lawmakers had initially voted last year to delay the enactment of provisions regulating the retail sale of cannabis. Then in November, Republican Governor Paul LePage, a real crazy if you ask me, vetoed legislation that sought to license and regulate marijuana businesses and sales, stating, quote, "Until I clearly understand how the federal government intends to treat states that seek to legalize marijuana, I cannot in good conscience support any scheme in state law to implement expansion of legal marijuana in Maine," end quote. Lawmakers in Maine are pushing an alternative plan to amend and repeal numerous provisions of the law, including changing some of the provisions that have already taken effect. Specifically, language in the new proposal would limit the quantity of marijuana plants that an adult may legally grow in a private residence from 6 to 3. Of course, we oppose the proposed amendments. Here in Oregon, many legislators who've changed voter-approved laws have been voted out of office, and I certainly hope the voters in Maine vote these crazies out of their office too. Other language in the new Maine proposal would repeal language permitting the operation of state-licensed social use facilities and would eliminate provisions restricting portions of marijuana-related tax revenue to localities that explicitly permit such operations. Separate language in the bill seeks to impose a new 21.5% excise tax on wholesale marijuana transactions, in addition to a tax on the retail sale. The bill also makes it easier for communities that wish to ban adult use operations to do so. 21.5% tax is pretty darn high, don't you think? A finalized version of the bill is anticipated to go before lawmakers in the Maine House and Senate later this month. That's the end of our hemp news segment, and Mr. John Cornett standing by, ready to play some music. Hey, John.
Hey, Paul. Hey, they're not supposed to tax medical cannabis, right?
Well, this is for adult use in Maine.
Okay,
So
but
it's
not
actually
medical cannabis.
a proposed, there's already a tax on, they haven't set up the sales in Maine, first of all, but they already have a tax imposed on the retail sale. They want to add another tax in on the wholesale price, which will just drive the price, send people to the black market. That's what they want to make it fail, is what some of these crazy Republicans want to do.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Well, it's time for planting over here, pretty much, almost.
Coming up
This
on
song here, John Denver covered this. I think it's a John Prine song, though, actually, and it goes a lot like this. It's called The Garden Song. Inch by inch, row by row, gonna make this garden grow. All I need is a rake and a hoe and a piece of fertile ground. Inch by inch, row by row, someone bless the seeds I sow. Someone warm them from below till the rain comes tumbling down. Pulling weeds, picking stones, man is made of dreams and bones. Feel the need to grow my own, 'cause the time is close at hand. Grain for grain, sun and rain, find my way in nature's chain. To my body and my brain, to the music of the land. Your rows straight and long, temper them with prayer and song. Mother Earth will make you strong if you give her love and care. Old crow watching hungrily from his perch in yonder tree. In my garden I'm as free as that feathered fellow up there. By inch, row by row, gonna make this garden grow. All it takes is a rake and a hoe and a piece of fertile ground. Inch by inch, row by row, someone bless the seeds I sow. Someone warm them from below till the rain comes tumbling down. Thank you very much. Plant them seeds. Get those starts in.
You'll be back at close of the show to sing another one. I want to welcome our viewers to Cannabis Common Sense and welcome you,
Hey,
Eric.
Paul.
How you doing, bro?
Doing good. How you doing?
Very well, very well. We're here for another week, and if you're out there and you have a question about cannabis in any of its varied forms or uses, from industrial hemp to medicine and adult use, you can call us at 503-288-4442. That's 503-288-4442. So that story about the Eli Lilly pharmaceutical chief, who's now the head of the Health and Human Services Department, talk about a conflict of interest.
Right, right.
Yeah. He doesn't think there's any use for a botanical plant.
Yeah, no.
Not when you own Eli Lilly, but Eli Lilly used to have 25 different marijuana medicines. everything from powdered hashish to pure tincture of cannabis, fluid tincture of cannabis, several different extracts, and in combination with other things, including opiates and chloroform and acetaminophen. And so Eli Lilly has a history of that until cannabis was prohibited back in the 30s. But he says there's no history of medical use.
Yeah.
You know? Pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, it is very ridiculous. I know personally that cannabis has helped me stay off opioids for my back injuries and whatnot. So there's plenty of medical help there for it.
I know you had just pulled up another story about how they had used Cialis on boys to treat erectile dysfunction.
Right, yeah.
I don't think boys have erectile dysfunction.
No, not at the age of the age
it
they were
doesn't make any sense at all.
Yeah, the age they were pushing it was like 6 through 10 year olds with Duchenne's muscular dystrophy, and how it didn't help them.
How many different forms of muscular dystrophy are there?
Oh gosh, there's say like 150 or so. They're
oh, wow.
Each one has a particular strain and different ailments behind it. Yeah, but it's pretty deep.
So this guy who has made all of his money off the pharmaceutical industry is now out there lying about marijuana on behalf of the federal government. What else is new?
Right? Yeah, there you go. Them telling those truths, right?
Right. We have a phone call. If you have a question or call for us tonight, you can call us at 503-288-4442. That's 503-288-4442. And we have a caller. Welcome to the show, caller.
Hi, Paul.
Howdy.
Hopefully I don't break up too bad this time.
We can hope.
Yeah. I've got a question.
Okay.
Now that California, Oregon, and Washington are all three legal, if you lived in a state where it wasn't legal, which of the three states would you choose to move to that could take advantage of the current legal status?
You know what? Hold on just a second, because we can't quite hear what's being said here in the studio. Let's get that sound turned up here a little more. And could you start your question again, please?
Yes.
Okay,
I
go
live
ahead.
in Texas. I've called before, and I'd like to move to the West Coast. And now that California is legal, which of the three states, if you lived out here in non-cannabis territory, would you choose to live in?
Well, you know, I chose a long time ago to move here to Oregon, and I still think Oregon has pretty much the best laws. And we have the least expensive cannabis for consumers. So
Okay, I have another question.
Okay.
If you wanted to get into the cannabis business, which would you choose, the retail end or the grower end?
Depends on how much money you have to invest in these facilities. You know, it costs
100,000.
a lot of money to do either one. And so you should plan that you'll be spending at least $1 million to build out either
Whoa.
operation.
A lot more than I figured.
Yeah, it takes a lot of money to build a good cannabis facility. And you should plan on at least $1 million.
At least $1 million.
And that,
okay.
you know, that doesn't really count buying property
Yeah.
or leasing it.
I've done my research and I found out Oregon is the lowest as far as property costs of the three West Coast states.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
And
And
then,
there is kind of a glut on the market. If you were going to move immediately into a market that has the most opportunity in the short term, California's probably it.
Not really keen about California.
I understand.
I can deal with volcanoes. I can't deal with earthquakes.
Yeah, I understand.
Well, I wanted to say thanks, and you guys keep up the great work, and have a nice night.
Hey, thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Have a good night. Thanks for your call. If you're out there watching anywhere in the country, you can have your friends or family tune in at facebook.com/restorehemp. That's facebook.com/restorehemp. And we are streaming live on that Facebook site right now. So you were talking about Nevada just before the show too.
Yes. So these states are worried about not bringing in money and whatnot, and having cannabis legalized. Nevada in its first 6 months, $30 million in tax revenue right there. It's a streaming business if the states want to hop on board.
You know, I went to Nevada for the Marijuana Business Conference, which was at the Las Vegas Convention Center, which is just huge. It's the biggest convention center I think I've ever seen. But there were tons of businesses around there. Some of them, these dispensaries are open 24 hours a day.
Wow.
So,
If you get in, it's a very profitable industry right now.
yeah. They had almost 700,000 vendors. I mean, they had 700, or almost 700 vendors. And it was 20,000 people who paid to get in. And it wasn't cheap to get in.
That's
either.
what I heard. I heard it was like $150 a ticket or something like that.
A day almost.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, it was pretty expensive. It was more than just $150. I can't remember exactly, but it was a pretty penny for sure.
Right.
But you know, also in Nevada, the Gaming Commission, the year before last year, you know, this year it was there. The Marijuana Business Conference was in the Las Vegas Convention Center, but the year before that, it was in the Rio Casino, which is an off the Las Vegas Strip casino. And I had clinics in Vegas and helped thousands of patients there back earlier, 5 or 10 years ago, get their medical marijuana permits. But the fact is that the industry is booming everywhere, but especially there in Nevada.
Sin City, baby.
Guess we have another caller. Welcome to the show, caller.
Hi.
Hey,
Hi, Paul.
welcome.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
It's me, Ricardo.
Hey, how are you?
Hey, I'm just watching your show, and I've been enjoying it a lot since the beginning of right now, and
You know what? Your voice came in okay at first, but it kind of faded out here, and I can't hear you now. Maybe we can get the soundboard. You know, we're an all-volunteer show, and so our normal
Can you hear
sound
me?
guy has taken the night off. But let's see if I can hear you now. Go ahead again, please.
Can you hear me now?
Much better.
Okay, just wanted to let you know that this type of shows is a huge inspiration for us down here in El Salvador. So
All right.
hopefully after Mr. Pierce's case is over, we can start the fight and maybe constitutionally challenge the drug laws here. Well, I just wanted to let you know here. Yeah, have a good night, and
Hey, thanks for calling.
all the
Now I
support
recognize your voice. This is Ricardo Langlois, who's defending Clay Pierce down there.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I didn't recognize that at first because the sound issue, but it's good to hear from you. I was pleased to come down. You were a great host while I was down there visiting Mr. Pierce when he was locked up in the El Salvador prison. How is he doing?
He's doing fine. He's recovering pretty good, and
Is he still in the
Well-
hospital?
yes, he's still in the hospital.
Okay.
He's no longer in antibiotics anymore.
How much longer will he's been hospitalized since February 2nd, if memory serves me correctly. How much longer is he
Yeah,
going to be in the
February
hospital?
February 3rd, and maybe 2 more weeks.
Really? And then he's supposed to go to court on the 20th.
That's right.
I know you needed some documents from here in Oregon, and I just today yesterday I went up and got them notarized and drove up to the state capitol and got this document called an apostille placed on that, scanned it and sent it off to you. So those documents should be there on Monday.
That's correct. I received the emails. I have a tracking number and everything. That's why I'm thanking for all your support.
Glad to do it. Hopefully that'll help and he can be let go and get on with his life and start recuperating outside of this threat hanging over his head.
That's correct.
You know,
Okay,
you're
just
doing
wanted
great
to say
work,
hi and,
Ricardo.
Okay, thank you for everything.
Hey, you're welcome. Thanks for calling in. It's good to hear your voice.
Okay.
Now we have a studio audience here, and we have John Cornetts come up to the microphone for the studio audience. Go ahead, John.
Just a very quick, very important note to our friend who called here regarding Clay. Clay cannot leave El Salvador until he has fully paid all of his medical bills there, which are accumulating by the day. I have no idea what they're up to now. I just know they're screwing around with what little money he had, and man, the people.
I think it's over $15,000 as of last week.
Yeah, this is a man who's pretty damn poor. Excuse my saying.
Yeah, they took all of his belongings. He wasn't planning on being in El Salvador either. He was simply flying between Colombia and the United States, and the airline had a layover in El Salvador. He wasn't leaving the airport, but they searched his bags and arrested him and took his cash, which was everything. He sold his property here in Oregon, and he had a little under $10,000, and they've taken it from him. It's a shame.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe Clay's out there watching. So, hey, Clay.
Hey, Clay.
And so we have a video from our friend Jorge Cervantes, who was a guest here 2 or 3 weeks ago. This is, I think, the second installment with Grower Mike. So we'll be back right after this 4.5-minute video.
Okay, you can see my little dog here. She's having a great time. The cats are giving her a lot of grief. They beat her up a little bit earlier today. So anyway, this is Jorge Cervantes. I'm here at a greenhouse in Northern California, and this one is, well, it's full of OG. Oh yeah, let's see, this is all sour diesel, the last video I looked at. I forgot to mention. Okay, but these are all OGs, and what I wanted to go through on this one is the growth habit, because you know, there's a ton of OGs out there. And this OG, well, let's just start comparing them. We've got one here. Take a close look at that. Now look at this OG. This looks 100% different. The whole leafing structure, branching structure, it's completely different. These plants haven't been covered with a tarp or light depth, as they call it. They're just flowering under natural light, natural photo period. Now those two over there look pretty much the same, very similar to this one, similar genotypes, but they had to be grown from seed or different seed lots and then cloned. I really don't know. I talked to the grower a little earlier, and everybody's busy trimming, so they didn't really have much time to talk, and I had to get out here and make sure the sun was in my favor. But look at the difference here. Look at this OG here. See, so much different than the one right next to it. Look at this one here. See? Much, much different. Shh. Mia, no. Tranqui, tú. Déjalo. And here's another OG. Quite a bit different still. You've got two basic types here. One's real dense and the other one's not. Shh. Tú, tranqui. Okay, this one is flowering up. See, this is the end of August. Just a minute, these dogs. Hey, see the cat gets this dog and she's barking. So that's what the story is. But you can take a look back here. You can see what this looks like. It's got basically this is functioning as a shade cloth, so it keeps things a lot cooler. And we've got some plantains growing in here. Could be weeded, but it doesn't seem to affect much because these plants here are in pots. The other ones are not over here. Now here's the irrigation setup. We've got just a simple splitter or a Y valve. And here's the timer. It's a very simple timer with the black tubing going out. Got the same thing here. These plants have just been watered. Okay, and I think this is the third crop as well. Okay, so that'll give you an idea of what we got here. Oh yeah, raised beds. These beds have been here for forever. We've got quite a few weeds around. That could be cleaned up. But boy, I'll tell you, that sun's coming in. Okay, well this is the second video in this little series of videos I'm doing here at this grow in Northern California. This is Jorge Cervantes. I'm tuning out. We'll see you on the next video.
That's our friend Jorge Cervantes. You can get more information about his work and his books by going to marijuanagrowing.com. That's marijuanagrowing.com, and you can find out a lot more there. You know, we have this banner here turned around because, almost unbelievably, an Israeli-Canadian oil company by the name of Adira Energy, that's A-D-I-R-A, has come in and spending over $1 million on attorneys, even though we've spent $150,000 fighting them. They were able to twist the courts to their will based on lies, and we're still fighting it. So I urge you, do not go to the Empower clinics. Do not go there. It's an evil, evil energy company, and that has come in a bizarre, dishonest manner to steal 270,000 medical marijuana patients' records and sell them to the insurance companies so they can know what you're doing. So we're fighting them, and we can certainly use your help. If you want to get involved in this, then give us a call. Our office number is 503-235-4606. It's 503-235-4606. We also have a referral line. We have doctors all over the United States who can help you. Just call us at 503-235-4606 if you need a referral to a doctor. We have doctors who can help you. Don't go to Empower Healthcare. I urge you there. Now, what was it you were talking about a second ago?
Cookies.
Cookies.
Cookies. Yeah, there's been a shortage of cookies. There's these nice little girls running around. They're called Girl Scouts. They've been posting up outside dispensaries. So
they're selling those cookies to cannabis users.
Portland, Oregon is sold out of Girl Scout cookies.
Really?
It's been a big thing. They're just out of them everywhere. Now, my thought is...
So you're not talking about the strain. I know a few years ago, some Girl Scouts in Denver got the idea of selling in front of Colorado's dispensaries. And a strain was developed called the Girl Scout cookies.
Yep. That's basically what they're doing now here in Portland. They're told they can't be on the grounds, but on the sidewalks outside of the business is okay. So they've been selling out left and right, you know. And my thought here is, granted, when you medicate or you recreate, you get the munchies. But I know a lot of stoners, and we're just generally nice. So if you come up with a box of cookies, we're going to buy them from you. That's just the way it is. So it might build.
It doesn't fit my diet right now.
Right. But there's every day once in a while.
Those samosas are pretty darn good.
But if you see them Girl Scout cookies out there, you better snag them up.
Well, you're a great advertisement for the Girl Scouts.
Hey,
there.
you know,
it's a good cause.
Helping kids. That's what it's all about, you know.
Again, if you have a question or comment for us tonight, you can call us at 503-288-4442. That's 503-288-4442. We have another video from Jorge Cervantes about making clones. So we're going to run that video, and we'll be back in just a moment. So enjoy.
Hi, this is Jorge Cervantes, and I'm at Wonderland Nursery in Garberville, California, the heart of Humboldt County, where we grow clones up here. And what we just done, or what Nicona's just done, is wet this oasis down, and he uses oasis rather than, and that's this stuff right here. This is called oasis. That's what you've probably seen it before. It looks like kind of a loose sponge. And what that does is it holds a lot of water and air both. So it's a perfect environment for the roots of the cuttings. And what he does is he picks that up. It's all saturated now. He's going to let that drain out. So it's got the perfect consistency of water and air in there. You can see this is all draining out here under the table. And what he's going to do is walk this into the building and stick a few clones in there, and we'll see just how easy that is. And the thing is about this oasis is it decomposes in nature. So unlike rock wool, it doesn't leave a big bolt of rock wool in the soil. It just disappears. And that's a good thing, real sustainable. So, Dakota, let's take that in and see what happens.
Just somewhere that I can take some shots.
Okay, so we're going out to the cloning area right here, and you guys will see. I mean, I got a question yesterday on my webinar about how difficult it was to take clones. Well, Nikona, what percentage of these clones stay alive? What's your percentage? How many of them do you grow, and how many of them?
Done properly and carefully, you can get between 78 to 89% progress.
Okay.
So you can have a pretty fair success rate.
80 to 90%. That's pretty darn good. Pretty darn good. Okay, so let's see. What's the next step?
I'm going to grab some cloning solution and a sharp pair of scissors.
Okay.
Well, they stopped their little presentation before they got into the nitty-gritty of making clones. It's not rocket science, but there's definitely a lot more to it than that. They didn't really get into actually making them there, but they were getting it set up, weren't they?
It's the start.
That's true. That's true. You know, we want to invite you to come down to Pioneer Courthouse Square. We're going to have an event in conjunction with 300 different cities around the world, the Global Marijuana March in 300 different cities. Here in Oregon, ours has been 200 to 700 people over the last, about 10 to 12 years. But in one city in South America, in Santiago, Chile, they actually had almost 500,000 people march through Santiago for marijuana law changes. And in Buenos Aires, it was about 150,000 people. And in Rosario, Argentina, they had about 25,000 people. And in Berlin, Germany, they have about 20,000 people march. So this is a huge event, and we here in Portland have ours coming up on Saturday, March the 5th, May the 5th. Saturday, May the 5th in Pioneer Courthouse Square. You can find out more. Just look up Global Marijuana March. We have a poster will probably pop up here in just a few minutes that tells you a little bit more information. We'll have that coming up in just a few moments. So let's see. I think we have another video about Jorge making clones. So we'll be back right after this video, I think.
Do here is take a couple of clones off of this plant, but it's a little bit of a problem because it's, as you can see, it's already started to flower and it's only the 10th of August. But what I've done is I've gone in here and I found a couple of them like this one here. I can make a clone out of this cutting here, and a couple of more of these small ones right down inside. Here's a couple of them here, and they don't have a lot of little hairs on them. They've just started to hair up, but these really aren't going to amount to much, so I can take those and make cuttings. And in order to do that, I'm going to take this my Swiss Army knife and just cut this off, and then I'm going to lightly scrape it like that, and that light scraping will help it initiate roots. Okay? And then the next thing I'm going to do is just trim this off here. Notice I trimmed it nice and tight. I'm going to take this leaf and just cut it in half, a little bit more than half actually. And then I'm going to do the same thing with this leaf. Now, it's still got the leaves, but it's going to transpire less. And when it transpires less, that'll give it a chance to develop some more roots. So I'm going to take this cutting right here and set it in a glass. Now this is a glass of purified water or distilled water. It's a glass of distilled water here. So let's take another cutting. We'll do this a couple more times, 3 more times actually, and then we'll go to the next step.
Okay, that was Jorge Cervantes with his first part 1 on how to make clones. I guess that first video was before you make clones. So someone in our audience was asking, how many clones can you make here in Oregon legally? You know, as long as they are clones, you can have an unlimited number of plants under 24 inches. And I think once they get over 24 inches, or about 2 feet, then there's a new change in the law that says you can only have 18 of those. Until recently, there wasn't a limit on vegetating plants, but the legislature changed that. And in fact, the Oregon legislature came up with some additional changes that I'm not fully familiar with yet in their short session that just ended last weekend. So the law has changed about 10 times since it was enacted about 2 years ago. So it's a constantly moving target to try to keep up with all these regulatory changes. And that's just at the state level. Each different county and municipality often has different rules as well. So it can be very difficult to stay up on all of these changes. But hey, we're trying here. So
I think they're trying to catch people up.
I don't know, or it's just they're responding to these industry groups that are trying to stop competition on one level. They're responding to law enforcement that wants to keep taking our stuff and putting us in jail. There's a lot of moneyed interests out there that are pushing the legislature to curtail our rights for medical marijuana. But someone who's been here on this panel before here, Anthony Taylor with Compassionate Oregon, told me a couple of weeks ago he's now on the new Oregon Medical Cannabis Commission, a new overseeing body and he says they hope to increase the number of medical marijuana registrants from 50,000 today to 250,000. So that would be something. I think at its highest level is about 72 or 73,000 patients, and it's kind of dropped off to about 50,000 now because of the changes in the recreational market. But we hope to see further changes that make it better and easier, not just for medical patients, but also for industrial hemp. You know, we have our industrial hemp right here. We have our hemp flame of freedom. This is hemp seed oil with a hemp wick. Here's a little container of hemp seed oil. This is next week's hemp wick right here. And then this is hempcrete. It's chopped up hemp stems with powdered limestone. And it's the oldest form of concrete. And there are buildings in Italy that are almost 12,000 years old that are made with this. You know, the Romans were only around for about 500 years, about 1600 to 2,000 years ago. Before that, the Etruscans. Well, this preceded that by at least 10,000 years. So hemp will save what's left of our biosphere if we can adopt it rapidly. We have a couple callers standing by on the phone lines. Welcome to the show, caller. Hello, caller.
Yes, hello?
Hey, how are you?
Fine, how are you?
Pretty well. Thanks for calling.
Good, good. Yeah, you're welcome. I have a friend whose son has problems, huge problems with tinnitus. And I told her you need to get some oil. And she's just kind of backing down. She's not really too sure. Do you have any suggestions?
Well, I think taking an edible is a good idea. We have doctors who can advise him. We have a physician referral service, and if they want to talk to a physician about that, then we can refer them to one. Just give us a call at that number there on your screen, 503-235-4606. Most likely, my wife Teresa will call you back and try to help you. Okay?
Okay, and and you'll have the phone number online.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's right here on the screen, and I can
Okay.
repeat it. It's 503-235-4606. That's 503-235-4606. We can refer you to doctors all over the United States that you can talk to.
Okay.
So we'd be happy to help.
Sweet. Thank you so much.
Hey, you're very welcome.
Bye.
You know, I think we have that poster now for our Oregon March. There it is, the Oregon Cannabis Festival, from high noon until 5 p.m. on Saturday, May 5th. There'll be bands, vendors, speakers. It'll be lots of fun, and a march. So come on down and come to the march. We have another caller. Welcome to the show, caller.
Hi.
Hi.
What I was wondering is, my question is along the same lines as the previous caller. A lot of lower back and leg pain, and I was just wondering if there's a product by name in an edible form that I could get over here in Vancouver. I've got transportation problems, but I could probably get down to that 13th or that place downtown.
For chronic back pain and leg pain, you'd want to take a dose that is pretty significant. A lot of edibles here in Oregon are limited to 15 milligrams of THC or one of the active ingredients. CBD is very useful for pain. Some people like to get it in a one mix of CBD and THC. Probably the best product is called RSO, or Rick Simpson oil, a high cannabinoid oil that has strong anti-cancer properties as well. What do you think?
I prefer greenies.
Greenies?
I call them greenies. They're activated cannabis in a little capsule. I take 4 every morning, and I have horrible leg pain, horrible back pain, and it keeps me nice and floaty throughout the day, along with my regular medication of cannabis that I throughout the day. But this is a nice capper to get you going for the morning. Like I said, greenies, any type of activated flower in a capsule form, just pop a couple of them every morning, and that should help you out.
And activated means, the technical term is decarboxylation, where the carbon dioxide molecule is stripped away from the THC, and that makes it medicinally active and psychoactive. And so some people use slightly vaporized flowers. Some people cook it in the oven at 200 to 225 degrees. Either way, that activates it, decarboxylizes it, and makes it medicinally active as well.
Okay, and those are called greens?
That's what he calls
That's
them.
what I call them, yeah.
But you can make them. There's no real product out there called greenies, I think. You can't go into a dispensary and buy greenies. But you can take herbal cannabis that's been lightly baked or lightly vaporized and crush it up and put it into capsules like that. Pretty big size capsules, right?
Yeah, they're decent size, yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of like eating this really strong brownie, except for you don't get all the grit.
Yeah.
Okay, and they would have this over here at that store downtown Vancouver?
I can't speak to whether they do or don't, but if you call our office, we can give you a little bit more information and do a little bit of research.
And our office number is?
It's right there on the screen. It's 503-235-4606. That's 503-235-4606.
Okay. You there tomorrow?
Our phone machine is on 24 hours a day, so you could call there right now and leave a message, and we'll probably call you back either Sunday or Monday.
Okay. Thank you very, very much. Keep up the good work.
Hey, we appreciate it. Good luck with your pain condition. Glad you're not using too many opiates. Those are what the doctors give you. And, you know, I had sprained my ankle a few years back, and they gave me Vicodin, the hydrocodone stuff. I took it for 3 days, and I quit after that. I kind of had, even though I had never used these things before, I kind of had withdrawal symptoms. I couldn't sleep. I was anxious. I was sweaty. Just after 3 days.
That's all it takes.
Just imagine if you've been on that stuff for 6 months or more. It becomes very, very difficult to stop once you've been hooked out. Now, cannabis, I can use it every day for a week and stop, and I won't have any side effects whatsoever. So that's a little bit of anecdotal information for you. Well, we are winding down with just about 2.5 minutes left to go. Is there anything you want to say in closing, Eric?
Hopping back to the opioids, I hate pharmaceuticals. If there's any other option for anybody out there, look into the cannabis. It's a miracle. Don't let your doctors push the opioids on you. There's no such thing as a pain pill that's going to help you better than cannabis, in my opinion.
And you have to deal with a lot of that.
I have to deal with a lot of pain.
Not only have you been a muscular dystrophy sufferer, you were in a horrible accident about a year ago that broke your back, and
a year ago,
while you were in the back of a taxi cab.
A year ago today, I was laid up in bed in a rehab facility, broken back, couldn't be in my chair for more than 10 minutes at a time, no sleep at night because I was on those opioids, and they kept me sweating up all night, and they were horrible. But yeah, I'm back.
All right.
Because I switched to cannabis.
We're glad to have you back, that's for certain. Thank you, Eric.
Yeah, thank you, Paul.
Thank you to our crew out there, and thank you, viewers. We'll be back next week. Remember, if you need help finding a doctor or you want more information about this bizarre Israeli-Canadian oil company that has come in and stolen our business and 270,000 medical patients' records, give us a call at that number on your screen, 503-235-4606. Mr. John Cornett is ready to play us some music this last minute and so left. Thanks for watching. Tune in next week and help us restore hemp.
Like that.
There's a train coming, and it's already on the track. People changing, and for some